Hey folks, so today we'll be discussing one classic way to misuse the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma. This is from an early text, which this part of it is often overlooked when we talk about the text in other respects. So I think it's going to be something of interest coming up. So I'm Doug Smith. I'm study director at the Secular Buddhist Association. That's secularbuddhism.org. And if you're interested in helping to promote in yourself and in society a wiser and a kinder and a less stress-filled world, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll have talks like this out once or twice a week on Mondays and most Thursdays. So if they interest you, topics in early Buddhism and secular Buddhism and related kinds of philosophies, consider subscribing and you won't miss them. So in the past I've mentioned this very famous sutta called the Alagadupama Sutta. That's the sutta of the water snake. Very, very famous. It's known mostly for the simile of the raft. That is, the Dharma is like a raft that we use to cross the river to the other side. And once we get across that river, we're not supposed to hang on to that raft. We're supposed to leave it on the shore. You don't go walking around with the raft on your back once you've crossed. That's a very, very famous simile. But the rest of the sutta is oftentimes overlooked. And in particular, the aspect is overlooked that has to do with the title of the sutta, because the title of the sutta is the water snake. In that sutta, I think some of us who've read it, you will often hear people say, oh yeah, that's the sutta where the Buddha says that the Dharma is like a snake, and if you grasp the Dharma incorrectly, it can bite you. And if you grasp the Dharma correctly, it won't bite you. And that way it's like a snake. But a lot of times I think people sort of gloss over or sort of go right over the fact of what that incorrect grasping is. Okay? And I think that's a very, very important thing that we shouldn't overlook. We should look at and keep in mind. How is it that we can grasp that Dharma incorrectly? And here I think it may be useful just to read a short little paragraph from that sutta, because I think it gets at what we're trying to say. So the Buddha says, some misguided men learn the Dhamma, but having learned the Dhamma, they do not examine the meaning of those teachings with wisdom. Not examining the meanings of those teachings with wisdom, they don't gain a reflective acceptance of them. Instead, they learn the Dhamma only for the sake of criticizing others and for winning in debates. And they do not experience the good for the sake of which they learn the Dhamma. Those teachings, being wrongly grasped by them, conduce to their harm and suffering for a long time. So that's a very interesting paragraph. Basically what the Buddha is saying is, a lot of people when they learn Buddhism, the Buddha Dharma or the Buddhist philosophy, they learn it as a kind of debate technique. They learn it as a way of criticizing other people, as saying, you're not doing it correctly, you don't understand things correctly, but I do. Now, to be fair, we in the modern West are kind of in a circumstance like those of the famous Kalama Sutta, and I will discuss that now. So in the Kalama Sutta, which is a very famous early sutta, basically the Buddha comes to a small town where there lived the people called the Kalamas. He gave them a talk on the Dhamma, and what happened was that the people there were very confused, because they lived at a crossroads where teachers, philosophers, holy men came from all parts of India, all parts of that part of the world, and each of them gave their own story, gave their own philosophy, and each of them criticized all the others. And the Kalamas were left in a situation of confusion and frustration, because to them, they wanted to know, look, how do we know which one of these is true? How do we know which one of these to believe? In the modern West, in the modern world, really, we're in a position very much like the Kalamas. There is so much information out there about different ways of viewing the world, different religions, different philosophies, different approaches. It's all available to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the internet or in discussions with other people. We're in a position of wanting to know which of those to believe. And of course, one of the ways that we learn which one to believe is by listening to debates, by hearing what they have to say to each other. And to be absolutely fair and open, the Buddha was, of course, the Buddha did debate other people. In the early suttas, there are many, many examples of the Buddha getting into discussions, or you could call them arguments or debates, with people from other philosophical backgrounds. Now, this is an interesting thing, because we might think that what the Buddha was saying in the sutta that I just read, the paragraph, is, well, you shouldn't debate anybody. And some people do take it that way. But I wouldn't take it that way, because he did debate other people. I think that the more, and in fact later on in that same sutta, the Buddha does discuss the way that he approaches people of other views. Basically what he says is, if other people criticize me, I don't take it to heart. It's just a view. If other people love what I'm saying and praise me, I don't take it to heart. It's just another view. It's just a view. Which is to say that it's not that he didn't hold these views as true. It's not that he didn't think that the Buddha Dharma was correct. It's rather that the views of the Buddha Dharma, the views involved in it, the Dharma itself, you hold with an open hand. You don't take it personally. And so to the extent that he was a debater, we have to assume, given this kind of background, that he was a person who debated without taking anything personally. He would, of course, say the way he thought the world was. In particular, he would give a message of investigate for yourself. Don't take things on scripture. Don't take things on blind faith. If somebody says something based on a book, well, investigate it for yourself. Find out if you feel in your own life that it leads to your benefit or to your harm. And indeed, that's the exact message he gave to the Kalamas. But I think he recognized, and that's what this paragraph I read earlier shows, that for most people, getting into a position of debate is a way to lead yourself to harm, because people approach debate as a way to, as he puts it, criticize others and win, and feel that you're better than others. That is, the debate can lead to conceit, which I've discussed in an earlier video, and I'll link it up here. It can lead to conceit, a tendency to compare to others. Are you winning or losing? That kind of mind. It can lead to arrogance. It can lead to, as a result of winning or losing, it can lead to hatred. It can lead to conflict. And in the overarching scheme, it can lead to a kind of clinging to views, an identification with views, which in the very next section after the part that I read, he talks about, in fact, the raft. So just as debate can lead us to cling to views, it can also, let's say, lead the person who takes the raft to the farther shore to cling to that raft that's on his shoulders and not let it go and just drag it around with him. So, in short, the way to misuse the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, is to use it as a debate technique to win in debates. Investigate the Dharma, yes. Discuss the Dharma with other people, yes. Maybe discuss the ways that you think the Dharma is correct in certain respects. Maybe you don't understand it in other respects, or you don't think it's quite right in other respects. But try to do that with a mind of non-clinging, not with a mind of trying to win debates. And I think this is particularly critical on the internet nowadays. That's one of the reasons I wanted to pick up this particular paragraph, because I think a lot of what we see on the internet, on discussion boards, blog posts, and so on, are thinly veiled attempts to one-up one another in debates. And, I know these well enough because I've been in them long enough, whether it's within this context or other contexts. It's a problem that leads to, I would say, unwise speech. It's a problem that leads to unkind speech, and it's a problem that leads to higher stress levels, because we can feel ourselves tightening around these views and these opinions, especially if we feel it momentarily as though we're losing in some debate. So I think once we've understood that, we can take the other view, which will lead us to a wiser and I think a kinder way of approaching the subject matter and others, a way of approaching the subject matter that's less stress-filled. So I hope that this teaching of the Alaggadupama Sutta of the Buddha has been useful to you in this context today. I think it's a great teaching, one that we should keep in mind when we're out on the internet or in daily life and discussing these matters with people of different opinions. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm really glad to have you here. And thanks all of you so much for your kind comments and questions. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you're hearing, and I'd be really interested to know any kind of other comments you have about this material. I know it's a very famous sutta, but maybe some of you haven't read it. I'll try to link it below so you can read it if you want. It's long, so you don't have to, read it all at once, but you can read it in parts. Not that long, but maybe, 10, 20 pages. So anyway, read it, see what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll catch you on the next, I was going to say the next sutta, but the next video. Bye-bye.